within it. So neoliberalism accelerates the destruction of the living world, which admittedly has been at the heart of all ideological projects since the Industrial Revolution. The living world has borne the brunt of just about every ideology there's ever been, but neoliberalism is particularly destructive to it. But it also is destroying our political life. And there is no clearer example of this than Donald Trump. Trump is not a neoliberal. If anything, I mean, the people he comes closest to, the people he most resembles in history, were the proto-fascists or the fascists. But what Trump is appealing to are the people disenfranchised by neoliberalism. Because neoliberalism, like the gold standard before the First World War and its partial reintroduction in some places before the Second World War, what neoliberalism does is apply a straitjacket to politics. It says there is no alternative. I mean, isn't this amazing that this doctrine, which was all about choice and freedom, was promoted with the slogan, "There is no alternative." And the idea is that you lock down the system by this very tight fiscal discipline which neoliberalism demands, so that even when you need to help people, when politics demands that help is available, the money is not there, because the money is being given away to the rich in the form of tax cuts. It's no longer there. Well, actually, it does turn out to be there when you need to bail out the banks. But mysteriously, it just simply wasn't there when anybody else needed a bailout. You know, neoliberalism says you're locked into this. And because there wasn't anything else available, and for all sorts of other reasons, because of the capture of the entire political class by the plutocrats, as we know, the formerly left parties became entirely sucked in to the neoliberal vision, so that both Clinton and Blair were as neoliberal in terms of economic relations as Reagan and Thatcher were. And Blair, you know, was very clearly part of that whole new political project which began in 1979. And so there was this shutdown of choice, there was this belief that the market could solve everything, so you didn't need any political solutions. And what that meant was you had a vast disenfranchised population who saw nothing for them in politics, who just saw it as a stitch-up between rich people. And that is a very, very dangerous situation indeed, because when you have people who do not engage with politics, and you're no longer part of the political world, you have people who are highly susceptible to demagoguery. And what demagoguery does is say, to hell with the rules of politics, to hell with things like debate, and having policies which which one side will talk about in this way, another side in that way, and you say, oh, are you right, are you wrong? To hell with things like facts. It's all about sensation. And if you're appealing to people who are totally shut out of political debate and political engagement, sensation is all that's left. So you run the flag up the pole, you get people saluting to it, you get people chanting and shouting. It's all about the excitement of potential dominance and power and violence, which of course is at the heart of what Trump is offering, is violence, is this great sort of cleansing violence of the kind we saw became a highly attractive message to many people in Europe in the 1930s. And I see that just as the gold standard and similar economic straitjackets in the 1930s, following their own great financial crisis, ensured that there was no political choice, and that in turn provided openings to fascism. I see a very similar thing taking place now. And it's very hard right now in America to see what the way out is going to be, because let's assume, as most people hope, and as indeed, I can't really call it a hope, but I can call it my least worst scenario, is Trump loses and Clinton wins. Let's assume that is the case. Now, Clinton is a straight down the line neoliberal. In fact, even more so, if that's possible, than Bill Clinton was. And she's totally in bed with Wall Street. She hasn't got a progressive bone in her body. She epitomizes the shutdown of political choice and the Bermuda triangulation in which the entire Western world has been lost as the old left, the former left and the right converge on a set of policies which favour the financial sector. So if she gets in, what then happens is the problem that Trump embodies doesn't go away, it gets worse. People see that there's even less hope. At least Obama offered some tiny modifications of the neoliberal agenda. They haven't been nearly as impressive as he promised, and he gave in on just about everything. Clinton offers none of that at all. So then the scenario is that Trump is a John the Baptist. Trump is not the worst we're going to see if that is the case. Someone even nastier comes forward, seeing what Trump has demonstrated, that there is a huge constituency out there who are just completely divorced from rational debate, and so we appeal to them on a totally different level, and thinking that is the path to power. And that is, to me, not an implausible scenario, that things get even worse under Clinton than they are right now. And the danger increases. And this is a direct result of that shutdown. But the other thing, even more potent and perhaps even more dangerous than this, is the extraordinary self-replicating, internalizing capacity that neoliberalism has. It's an astonishing thing, the way that it infiltrates public consciousness so that we all become, in effect, neoliberals. So, we have a system of structural unemployment at the moment. But unemployed people are made to feel it's their fault. If you don't have a job, you're a loser. It's your fault. You've screwed up. You haven't succeeded. You haven't got the right qualifications. You're just not made of the right material. You haven't pulled up your socks. You haven't sorted yourself out. And people come to believe it. Just as the very rich succumb to what I call the self-attribution fallacy, they believe that they are solely responsible for the wealth that they've acquired, despite all the massive advantages they've been given. The very poor also succumb to the self-attribution fallacy. They believe that they're responsible for the terrible situation that they are in. And that's an incredibly effective way in which neoliberalism has begun to affect us. Here's another one. When I tell you that people within the financial sector have acquired wealth beyond all former dreams of wealth, that if they've managed to maneuver themselves into a position where they are senior in a bank in the city, or they are a manager of a formerly publicly owned utility, post-privatization, they just sit back and make millions of pounds every year. On hearing that, is your first response, we've got to sort this system out? Or is your first response, how can I get a piece of that? Because let's face it, there's a little part in all of us, isn't there now, which thinks, damn it, I chose the wrong profession. And it's a striking feature that, educated people in the 1960s, 1970s, as Tony Judd points out in Ill Fares the Land, educated people, the great majority of graduates would go into some sort of public service or liberal profession because being of service, doing good, was considered the highest calling there was. Now the great majority of graduates, particularly from the Russell Group universities, they will go into the professions which pay the most, because that is considered the highest ideal. And we've all internalized that, at least to a small extent. And so we become the shock troops of neoliberalism. And we discipline ourselves, and we kind of discipline other people. And all the ills which it imposes, we blame ourselves.